Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to day one of the 6th Annual Wisconsin Science Festival. My name is Laura Heisler. I am Director of Programming for WARF. I'm also the Director and co-founder of the Wisconsin Science Festival. And this is a first for us to have a representative, two representatives actually from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So we took advantage of the fact that they wanted to be here to have this conversation. We're delighted you could join us for it today. I wanted to give just a little bit of context and background for what we're doing here and set the stage for the conversation. Before I do that, just a couple of housekeeping notes. We are videotaping this. This is a special installment of our WARF Essential Topics series. We always videotape these. We have years of these videos on the WARF website as well as the Discovery website. Because we're videotaping it, when we get to the Q&A portion, which we will in about 40 minutes or so, I'm going to ask you to wait for one of the microphones to get to you, so raise your hand when you have something you'd like to say, and we'll get a mic to you. That way we capture your question on the mic. Another housekeeping note, we always, if you've been to these before, you know we always conclude with a networking reception. We have a special reception today, so instead of meeting in the atrium behind you, we're actually going to meet across the street at Union South in Gallery 1308, where Janine Yastri and her team from WARF have arranged a phenomenal exhibit of patent drawings from WARF inventors. So if you haven't already seen that, please do join us after the session today. Crystal and Eric will be there. We'll have some refreshments, and you can continue the conversation and take in these this phenomenal exhibit. So what I wanted to do is set the stage a little bit for why we wanted to have this conversation with Crystal Shepard and Eric Iverson. As some of you know, have any of you been to the Wisconsin Science Festival except for this event? So any other times that any of you have come to the Wisconsin Science Festival, you could raise your hands. So you know that in this building, we do a lot of things with science outreach. We bring in K-12 kids. We bring in the general public. We have video games this year. Why are we doing this? Just today, Crystal was busy the whole day. She doesn't look like she was busy all day talking to kids, but she probably talked to every one of the 1,400 kids who is here today. We have 1,900 coming tomorrow, Crystal.
Oh, dear me.
And it's been like this every year. We in this building have these events. Not quite at the same scale, but we have Saturday Science once a month. We have field trips all year. We have after school. This campus has a phenomenal amount of science engagement. We have Science Expeditions has been running for, I don't know, Tom, 20 years, something like that. 15 years, brings in about 4,500 people every year when it's held. Engineering Expo, I think in the 10,000 people come I think it's every year now. Around the country, frankly, around the planet, there are science festivals. Every science festival that's been started in the last 10 years has continued and grown. This is a phenomenal thing that's happening. What's going on? And why is it happening on college campuses? And then more importantly, why is the patent office here? So about a year ago, Crystal's office reached out to us and said, hey, can we be a part of the Wisconsin Science Festival? And we said, heck yeah. And it turns out the patent office has a whole science education and outreach division. So what we want to do today is really understand a little bit more about why that's happening at the patent office. Why is this happening at universities around the world? What's going on? What does it mean for the innovation culture in our communities, in our country? And are we doing what we need to be doing? Are we really having the impacts we want to have? So we're going to have a conversation about that. But before we dive in, I'm going to ask Crystal Shepard to say a little bit about what the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office is doing in this space, what her regional office in Detroit does, and then we'll move into a facilitated discussion. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Crystal.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And if I, look tired, probably it's because I am. She's just being nice. Last time I was here, I spoke to, when it was Science Saturday, and I think I spoke to all 600 of the kids who came through. And it's such a fun event. But why am I here today? It's kind of to give you an idea of why the PTO is interested in this space. Like, why are we even in this space? And because it's an election season, I'm going to use this quote, and it's not in reference to any of you. It's the economy, stupid. It's about the economy. And if we want these kids to grow up to be the employees we need, to be the inventors we need, to be the people who are the next Bill Gates or whomever, so that they have ideas where they create jobs and bring that money from other countries into our country. We need these kids to understand that science, technology, engineering, and math are important, but more important, more important than that, but they're fun. And something that every kid can be a part of. Every kid. I understand that here in Madison, you have some kids who are, and you used this word a while ago, who are on the wrong side of the not achievement gap, but the opportunity gap. And it's a shame because you're right here in Madison. And if that happens in Madison, think about what happens around the country. So for 227 years, the United States Patent and Trademark Office has existed. 227 years, that's amazing. Like literally everything that has ever been patented in the United States has come in through a piece of paper into our office, more recently electronically. Our examiners have looked at it. One of our first examiners was Thomas Jefferson. The first person to sign our patents when they're granted. Anyone want to guess who that person was? George Washington. So that's how important it is to this country. And that's how important it is to this economy that the very first State of the Union, George Washington said, and he said it nicer than this, but why don't I have a patent bill to sign yet? And the next year he had it. Because he knew how important that was to innovation, to the economy, and from then to today. It's no different. And the Patent and Trademark Office, we're part of the government. We're actually part of the Department of Commerce. So if we have 100 kids in front of us, and 40 of those kids are left out for whatever reason, is that good for our economy? Is that good for our nation? So we're trying to reach not just those 60 kids, but the other 40 as much as we can. So that's some of the things we do. And the presentation that we have here is was designed to kind of tell you how we talk to kids, but I can't talk to you the way I talk to kids. But it's really easy to get kids interested in science, technology, engineering, and math if you say it in the right way. What kid is not interested in inventing and ideas? So just really quickly, because I'm not going to take up a lot of time here. So our office was open for 227 years this year. How long do you think it was before we had an office located in the Midwest? Someone want to guess?
Last 5 years.
4 years ago. So it was really, this is one of the reasons I took this job, it was really important to me. It's like, wow, finally they're realizing there's innovators in places other than Washington, D.C. Or people who don't have the resources to go to Washington, D.C. Or people who are small businesses who need the same information that the people in D.C. are getting. So we're able to do this by having people like me in 4 areas of the country. We have someone like me in Midwest, Rocky Mountain region, Southwest, and on the West Coast. And we speak to every part of the innovation economy or ecosystem, from K through 12 in YK, because I don't know how to talk to people under 5 years old yet. Then K through 12, we do universities. I'm constantly talking to universities. Graduate students. In fact, we were talking to one of your volunteers downstairs earlier, trying to get him to join our organization. And then we talk to startup businesses, large businesses, up to people, like in that picture right there, that's GM. And we can see GM from our window. Anyone know what this is over here? This is Detroit, by the way. Did you know Detroit had water? Really clean water, by the way. Anyone know what this is? No one? That's Canada. So I can see Canada from my window. I really can see Canada from my window. So GM and then Canada. So we're also on an international border, so which helps us across borders. So we do all kinds of programming, but we also have examiners in our office, so people who decide whether or not your idea is good enough to get this grant of monopoly. We have 146, which includes 25 we just hired not too long ago. We have 12 administrative judges and space for 8 more. We have a courtroom. We have basically everything on the patent side that you would have in Alexandria or in the nation's capital out here in the Midwest. We do all kinds of events, Trademark Tuesdays, Patent Wednesdays, IP Basics, and resource tours, because it's really important that everyone who wants to be part of this innovation economy understands IP basics. Why? If you have a great idea and you go on Shark Tank and tell everybody about it, do you think there's not going to be 100 other people who can do it cheaper or faster than you can? How do you stop that from happening? By getting a patent or using a trademark or something like that. That's the way the government provides you a way of protecting your value add, your know-how. And we give all kinds of talks about this. And I'm going to keep this short because we want to talk. There are 4 types of IP: patents, copyright, trade secrets, and trademarks. You probably know those words. You probably don't know the difference. Some of you won't know the difference between those words. I can't get into it too much today because we don't have a lot of time. But understanding what those are and how they apply for your particular business or idea is incredibly important. But although I'm not going to get into this really in depth, patents, what are patents for? Patents are for ideas. Or for inventions, they're for inventions. So what do I mean by inventions? Well, they're actually more than one type of invention. There are things that are functional. There are plant inventions for plants, and then there are design inventions. So when someone talks about trying to get a patent, if you want to be really snotty, you can say, well, what do you mean? Do you mean a utility patent, a plant patent, or a design patent? And then they'll walk away from you because you're that guy. So utility patents are the ones you normally think about. Design patents are for the look and shape of things, so the ornamentation. And plant patents are very popular in Colorado right now. I'm here all week, folks. But they are really important in the Midwest for obvious reasons. We were just talking with a person from the plant, from the forestry, and from other places, because you're doing a lot of innovation in food technologies and that sort of thing. So in any event, 3 types were different protections in different areas. So we talked to kids about these things. So they'll know more about these things than you will right now because I haven't told you about them. Trademarks, love trademarks because kids immediately understand trademarks. And I do something really easy with them. Okay, if I draw 2 arches like this and they're yellow, what are they going to expect to see if they go in a building with these yellow 2 arches? Hamburgers, chicken nuggets, French fries. If I draw an M, also yellow, but it's block lettered, what are you going to expect to see if you go into some place with that block letter M, and it's yellow? Yes, exactly. I'm in the wrong place for that. But you see they're both yellow M's, right? They're both yellow M's. But one says boo, and the other one says chicken nuggets. And that's what trademarks are about. It's just about the identification between the mark and the source. And they get that. And then we talk about how sounds can do it, and everything can do it. And trademarks are so important to small businesses. And we talk to small businesses about trademarks and that sort of thing. The source. Yeah, I guess this is what they do with the kids. All this animation. Copyrights. Most kids understand copyrights because as they get older, they've been stealing them for a while. So it cannot just be movies and songs and books. It's also sculptures. It's architecture. Lots of things can be protected by copyright. And the takeaway from this a lot of times, and they didn't put trade secret on here, I don't know why, but anyway, people will take away from this, here's one product. It's not either or either or. It can be and. You can have every last one of these things in a single product. And this one, in fact, does. And they're all different. They're utilized for different roles and different purposes. And that's what we go around and talk to people about. Not everyone wants or needs a patent. Yes, I'm from the Patent and Trademark Office. I'm not here to push patents. We have a lot of work already. We have a backlog. We're happy if you file for a patent, but we have so many resources that tell you the difference between those 4 types of IP, help you pick which one is the right one for you. We help you with fees. Our fees, we know, sometimes are prohibitively expensive, so we have reductions in fees if you're a micro entity or small business. We also have help for people who can't afford the lawyers. We have lots of things to do for if you're going to do it yourself, pro se help. We have 2 programs for people who can't afford attorneys and are under-resourced. We have the pro bono program and the law school clinic program. And additionally, on our website, we have a whole section for kids. So I'm going to end up there, even though I have a lot more slides, because these are all boring. These are some of the things we would provide. And should I show the puff and fluff?
Yeah, go for it.
So if you think kids aren't interested, I will tell you, without a doubt, Kids love this video, and I showed it this morning, and the kids actually said,
Are
"Wow."
you tired?
Oops.
Are you tired of your wet dog leaving smelly wet spots on your furniture? Do you want to eliminate the aggravations of your wet dog racing through the house, shaking water and everything, or worse yet, rolling outside in the dirt? Do you avoid hugging your dog until they're fully dry? Introducing the Puff and Fluff. The Puff and Fluff is revolutionizing the dog drying process. It's simple, it's easy, it's fast, and it's safe. Gone are the days of confining your pet or leaving them alone for hours to dry. That damp dog smell is now gone within minutes. From a third grade school science project called Invention Convention, and with the love for her pet pug mojo, Marissa Strang set out to find a better way to dry her dog. The goal? Dry your pets fast before they have a chance to run away and cause trouble. Here's how it works. After bathing your dog, towel dry any excess water from your pet. Locate the head and tail markings on the Puff and Fluff and place your dog appropriately on top of it. Reach underneath and pull your dog's paws through the leg hole openings. Then simply grab both sides of the Puff and Fluff, bring together, and attach the Velcro. Lightly tighten the drawstrings around your dog's neck and tail. No need to over-tighten. Air should be able to flow through the openings. Attach virtually any blow dryer to the flex hose and turn your dryer on warm or low heat using the high-speed setting. Dogs love the circulating warm air. The Puff and Fluff not only calms your dog, but makes your dog fluffier too. After a few minutes, loosen the drawstring on the neck or tail and reach in to feel the air. Make sure the temperature is not too hot. You can also check to see if your dog is completely dry. Now, the hours of dry time are accomplished in just minutes at an affordable price.
My dog loves the warm air, and I like giving him a bath now. No more wet, smelly dogs with the Puff and Fluff.
I love the Puff and Fluff. For more information, go to www.puffandfluff.com.
So that was not an advertisement or endorsement of any sort, but you can see how kids have inventions, they have ideas. This morning I was on the same stage with a gentleman who invented the brick sticks when he was 9 years old. So we want to not just incentivize, but we want to empower these kids, and that's what I do part of my time.
Great, thanks so much for that background on what the Patent Office is doing. And you've heard a little bit about what we're doing as WARF, as a campus. Can you share a little bit about why, because you've told me that this is really important to you personally, and that you actually had to convince people in your regional patent office to go down this road. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, because of course, what's the most important thing for our office is to issue patents, to review patents. That is our bread and butter. Without that, there shouldn't be an office. But not everyone is on the same page about how much of my time should be out talking to kids. How much of our efforts should be going out and talking to kids. Because if you think about it, so it's not, first of all, it's not taxpayer dollars to begin with. It's user fees. And should user fees be used to talk to kids? And the answer to me is obviously yes. It's about the economy, stupid, right? Do you want people to actually buy your stuff? Do you want to have this country be in a place where when we don't make a lot of things, but we have a lot of ideas, that the money actually flows back into this country? So I will tell you that among the other regional directors, and I'm not going to tell you who, but there's 4 of us. You figure out which one it was. And at the time, there's only 2 of us. And I put in this is my plan of what I'm going to do for the office. And one of my top 3 things, one of them was K through 12. And this individual said that should not be in the top 3. And I fought them to the mat. And I will tell you that this individual is now doing a lot of K through 12, whether they want to or not. So I can't really answer your question. It's important to me because I think there are a lot of kids who are under-resourced and underserved and underrepresented, and there is no reason why we shouldn't be bringing those people into the fold, because they can help us so much because they have ideas just like anybody in this audience.
And before I turn to Eric for his thoughts coming into WARF really recently, did you have someone in your life when you were at that age, maybe a 9-year-old, trying to think about, could you see yourself in science? Was there something like that happened? Did you participate in some science program? Or?
Yeah, people ask me that all the time. I just don't recall anything like that. I always recall being interested in things and knowing that my parents were like, you can be anything you want to be, and never feeling at any point where there wasn't any impediments to that. But I know not everyone has that benefit of that sort of family environment. And it's really important to me that we do not allow this country to be, people whose parents are a certain thing and can bring their kids along, because that's not fair to those kids. Because there are some really brilliant kids who don't have that family support.
Right, great. So Eric, you have been at WARF for a little over 3 months. WARF's an old organization, kind of organization that can take a long view. Crystal's talking about something that really requires getting buy-in for something beyond next quarter's report or next annual report. Were you surprised that WARF is engaging in activities that seek to connect with the community and bring in K-12 kids? Or what's your initial reaction to seeing that this old organization is doing this kind of thing?
Thanks. I was not surprised that it was doing it. I was actually more surprised that there were people thinking perhaps we shouldn't. As Crystal says, I am a deep believer in outreach. I'm a deep believer in advocacy. And in my opinion, WARF is here to support the university, promote, aid, and encourage scientific research, to get the innovations that come out of the research into the marketplace. And unless we're reaching out to K-12 and all of society, quite frankly, they're not going to understand or recognize the importance of that great research. And it's no longer the idea that children or adults go do research or go do anything associated with science. They're surrounded by science. Their whole lives are run by science. They will not be able to function in society without understanding science. Whether it's the appliances in their house and how to run them, or their heat in their house, or how they run their automobiles, communicate with each other, they simply will not be able to function unless they have a solid grasp and appreciation of science. And so the fact that we reach out and communicate what this great university does for the children, for the adults, well beyond Madison, well beyond this nation and worldwide, we're doing ourselves a serious disfavor. And the next generation of researchers at this university, I hope many of them come from this state, and I hope many come from this county and this city. And unless we engage them, educate, engage them, and inspire them through outreach, we're going to lose out on some really great thought leaders and scientific research. So I truly believe it's of great importance, and it's our responsibility at WARF to do this outreach.
Great, thanks. I think, well, we have a lot of science outreach professionals in the audience, and I know that they're going to want to ask some questions about the kinds of long-term impacts that can result from exposure at an early age. I think it's telling that the inventor in your video is a young girl. There were actually some publications that came out just, I think last month, both in the Atlantic Monthly and Fortune magazine, that talked about the inventor gap between women and men, even at the university level, let alone STEM engagement between girls and boys, between traditionally underrepresented kids of all genders. You've talked a little bit about what we have at stake if we don't engage those groups. Can you talk a little bit about special efforts that the Patent Office is doing to target those that are underrepresented as inventors across the board? And I know you came here last year and we had a panel about women being underrepresented. What kind of concerns does the Patent Office have? What is the Patent Office actively doing to address those gaps?
So, I mean, first of all, we're not here to blame anyone or say anything. It's just the numbers. The numbers are what they are. And the numbers are not in representation to the population. And not in representation to the population of scientists either.
Right.
So, so what's behind those numbers? we're not gonna speculate on that, but how do we get those numbers to rise up? So we're not talking about taking anything away from anybody. So instead of having 100 patents, we're gonna have 160 patents, right? One of the ways is, so the Boy Scouts have always had an innovation patch. The Girl Scouts now have an IP patch together with the USPTO. And we bring them in and we tell them about this stuff and we show them that video of the puff and fluff with the girl in it. And it's funny, you'll see the girls go, oh, wow, just like you guys, like this is entertaining, but automatically in their head, whether they know it or not, for the rest of their lives, they're like, girls invent. Girls make things, you know, and I have to catch myself because I'm an older generation, like the rest of the people on the stage, and it's I shouldn't say older generation, but where I catch myself saying, "Well, okay, your boss says something, and he." Like, so today I was out there, I had to correct myself, and I just started saying she, because the kids don't do that. Right. I'm still working on myself. So we do the K through 12, we do the IP badge for girls. We have a special program called All in STEM, meaning everyone in STEM, and we highlight women who have made it in scientific fields. Every little piece that we can, but I don't know how we solve the problem. All I know is we're doing a little bit here and there.
And did you notice any difference between the girls and boys that you worked with today?
No, it was, and it's so great because both girls and boys were coming over to the tables and doing stuff. And part of the way I do my table is, okay, I have a problem. Can you help me solve it? And the kids want to help me to solve it. And then I show them how to do this thing. And then I say, okay, now you've done that, but you have to add this other thing to it, and they do that. And the third part of it is, okay, now you have to design it to make it look like something someone wants to buy. And you would think that the girls would be more into, well, some people would think the girls would be more into it than the boys. Boys love that too, and everyone should be included. Even the artsy kids are part of invention. And I believe you have an exhibit I haven't seen yet about art and innovation. So we try and include everybody.
And just for everybody's benefit, the activity that you did today was from the woman who created the Girl Scouts. Is that right? Can you tell people about?
So she has so this woman who invented the Girl Scouts had a patent for how to fold paper to make it into basically a bag form. So, and the way it was, her actual patent was to make a trash can liner out of something that was cheap and readily available, which is paper. But we and we make a cup, a paper cup, out of it so you can drink. And last time I was here, a woman was with her granddaughter, and the woman must have been in her 80s. And she said, "Oh, we used to make those when we were in Girl Scouts. We would go camping, and we wouldn't bring cups. We would fold paper." And I was like, "Well, the woman who did this was the woman who invented Girl Scouts." And you can see how touched she was. She never knew that, and showed her patent and everything. It's a fun activity. It's just folding paper. But I have yet to have a kid who walks out of there who didn't get engaged.
Yeah, you were swamped all day.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I'm hoping that, I know a lot of people in the audience, I know we have a lot of science outreach professionals, and we have some scientists who have shared their experiences of having exposure to science at an early age. And I'm wondering if anybody would like to jump in, ask Crystal a question, talk to Eric about WARF's involvement, what's going on campus. We'd love to hear from you, or I can keep going. Anybody in the audience?
Bueller.
Jump in. Well, I'm wondering, both of you, go ahead. Okay, great, sorry.
So have you tracked the STEM outreach initiatives, and have they been employed long enough to see where the kids that were engaged in some of these programs have gone? I guess kind of where are they now, stories or successes and outcomes of these things? Has there been enough time to do that? And if so, are there some success stories you could share?
For us, no, because it hasn't been enough time. In Alexandria, I don't know that they've been doing it long enough, but it's a great question. I'll go back and find out. I don't know if you're keeping track, but I haven't been doing it long enough to know the answer to that. Sorry.
I know that in the world of science engagement, I'm hoping some of the people in the audience who have been doing this longer than that we on our team have can talk about this, but there's starting to be more and more data. There's starting to be, certainly in this country, more and more experience with things like science festivals. I think longitudinal studies of what kids that have early exposure to things like Expand Your Horizons or other kinds of science activities are starting to be done. I'm wondering if anybody in the audience has any experience with what the studies are starting to find. Mike?
Hi, my name is Mike Randall. Until recently, I was the outreach coordinator for the Wonders of Physics program here on campus. And so we tracked data both quantitatively and qualitatively. The program itself has been around for 33 years. So we have plenty of stories of people coming to our shows as adults and saying, hey, I saw your show when I was a kid, and that's when I decided to become a scientist. On the quantitative side is more recent, but we would do shows and we do pre and post show surveys. And you could see just even in a half-hour show, a significant shift in their attitudes about science and their curiosity about science. I know for myself personally, my father was a scientist, and my parents divorced when I was 8. But my father, before that, really did a great job of instilling that scientific curiosity in my life. And I'm now 55, and I'm still just as curious about the world. One last thing on curiosity, too, and I know I'm getting a little off topic. There's a recent article recent article stating several Yale studies. It's in Reason magazine. It's October 6th. And they were trying to they're studying politics, climate change. They were trying to figure out why there's such a partisan divide on that. And they looked at science literacy, and it turns out the more literate you are in science, the more divided, because you're looking for answers. And it's very counterintuitive. And they said, well, maybe it's open-mindedness. And then they looked at that. No, same thing. If you're open-minded, you're going to go look for data to support your position. The one thing that brought both sides together and trended toward getting that climate change was something that was man-made was scientific curiosity. The more curious people were about science, the more likely they were to find the correct answers. So I wanted to throw that in.
You know, can I make a statement about that video? As much as I wish it was my daughter that was in it. You know, there's a multitude of lessons in that video, and it is certainly that you have a child engaging in an innovative enterprise, and secondly, it's a young lady. It's not a little boy, and third, she's entrepreneurial. She's selling it. Right. And that I think I'm very interested in at WARF as we expand the horizons of how we're going to commercialize, take technologies, help push them into viability to the marketplace, and how we commercialize those. Historically, it is a bilateral licensing exercise. That is, WARF licenses it to an organization, and we're seeing an increase, and we should, in building startup companies, whether it's IT companies or biotech companies, engineering, physics tools, whatever it might be. And I'm quite interested to see, and I've only been in town here for 3 months, but I'm quite interested to see the number of women that come forward to run some of these companies, and be CSOs in these companies, and be general counsels in these companies. And I think it's that I found coming out of Seattle. One of my great heroes there, Stuart Parker, male name, but it's a woman, and she's an iconic CEO within the biotech industry. Created a company, Targeted Genetics, in Seattle, and took it public. And then I went to go work at IDRI because she was the CEO at IDRI, and I wanted to report to her and learn much of how to run an organization from her. And my boss at the Gates Foundation was Connie Collingsworth, the general counsel there. I'm very, very interested to see the research coming out of this university and the number and type of women that will come forward to really take those towards the marketplace. I'm very excited about that.
And there is a discrepancy across universities. Autumn, the Professional Society for Technology Management out of universities, and we have some people at WARF working on looking at this as well. There's just a huge discrepancy between even women principal investigators and women inventors on patents, and then again between women inventors and women entrepreneurs. So there's something going on. So
yeah, true. And I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. And my daughter is at that age, now she's into high school, she'll walk into a room, close the door, and she'll disappear for months on end. And one day my wife and I were like, geez, I wonder what's going on in there. I wasn't smelling anything funny, so it was and we weren't in Colorado, but we were in Seattle.
Yeah.
So I walked into her room one day, and this was, I don't know, a year ago, and she's laying on her bed, and she's got, when she started school, I mean, let's talk about haves and have-nots. You start school, and the first thing they hand to you in the middle school is an iPad to every student. Okay, well, whatever. So she has an iPad from there, she has an iPad from home, and she has an iPhone. And what she had going on is she was watching a video on one of the iPads about how to do a particular project. Name your project. Some were more scientific than others, but they were all projects, and they were all innovative projects. And on the other iPad, she was doing research about that thing, about how you might do it differently or its application. And on her phone, she's talking with a friend about that very project. And I look at her, I'm like, awesome, you just keep doing what you're doing. And I walk outside the backyard, my son's beating a stick against the pole. And I'm like, so what's happened between, what's going on as we age and we become adults? And I really hope that nothing changes. I really hope it is that whether it's artistic or whether it's engineering or whatever it is, and kind of they're the same thing, quite frankly, it's all different applications of it. That again, we're surrounded with technology. We're surrounded by science. We will not function as a society without everybody knowing how to use it. So I was heartened by kids these days having access to these tools, and it's incumbent upon us to show them how to use those tools. And quite frankly, I didn't have to show my daughter anything. She's going to teach me a ton in this whole life endeavor.
And I'll just say one other thing. You have to make sure it's a safe space for them to learn and do things in and be kind of who they are. Maybe your son, hit the stick against the thing, but your daughter is the person who's more thoughtful. And there was a time when people would kind of push people in certain directions. And that's not happening as much. And I just see it when I talk to the K through 12 kids. They have no problem with the little boy who's like coloring and doing all kinds of designy things. So as much as we can curate that safe space and allow them to be that, it's going to help us in the long run.
I did tell my son to go in my daughter's room and learn something.
I'm wondering if while you were doing these activities with kids today and a few weeks ago when you were here, if you got any insights into your teaching method or different ways of using the exercise that you hadn't thought before that came from the kids, and if so, or even if not, what the impact might be on our students on campus. So many of the stations that were run today, run by undergrads, graduate students. How important is it for that generation of scientists to have exposure to the sort of fresh perspectives that kids are bringing? And is that exchange part of the equation here about why organizations like ours, why universities should be having dialogue with K-12 kids?
One of the things that I emphasized more this time than I did last time was kind of the group work. And before it was mainly each individual person doing something. But I kept saying, well, if you have a problem, there may be an infinite number of solutions to that problem. And maybe, so talking to other people about the problem like your daughter was doing, maybe you can find like a better solution than you would have had by yourself. So a lot of trying to get them to cooperate with each other and use the skill sets of the others. Because when I came last time, I just kind of bent it on the fly because I wanted them to do more than make this cup, was to say, okay, so your boss comes to you and she says, put a handle on it. So how are you gonna put a handle on it? And they blew me away. Like every kid put a handle on it in a different way. And in ways that I never even thought of. Like it would never have occurred to me to put a handle on it in that way. And absolutely, it was just magnificent.
So even in terms of WARF's engagement with the inventor core of graduate students and faculty here, there might be some potential insights that come from unexpected places, from the mouths of babes.
Well, that's true. On a Science Saturday, as you walk around, what I found very interesting and heartening is you have these extremely smart students and professors. I mean, just intellects, massive. And here they are bringing their science to a level of interest and application to a child of varying ages and making it relevant to them, to make what they're sitting in a lab doing that to most of us is an absolute mystery, and then bringing it to a point of engagement. and then having the child talk back about, what about this, that, and the other thing. And what would be particularly interesting is I'm sure if you sat there for not too long, you would get one of those students or professors saying, well, I never thought about it that way. That's interesting that you see that. And that dialogue is really good. And you just have to look at the computer space at this point. Those of us who have been around for a while, in fact, started their careers in the absence of even email. Kids are coming at it so differently and so fast, and they're creating whole new computer languages and applications with them that is outpacing even the next generation above. So it's not quite, but it's in certain areas of science, it's an equal playing field regardless of age.
And can I add a little bit to that? So there was a little kid today who was obviously much younger than the other kids, and he came over, and he was shy and kind of, you could tell that there was something going on there. But he picked up that thing and immediately, like faster than anybody else, got it. And then he started, doing the handle part. He figured that out immediately, and then he figured out the design. He went to town to the point that he wanted to, his mother wanted him to stop, and he started crying. So it was, so you could tell he had some emotional issues, but he was totally into it. And I think having that sort of kind of interaction with kids and letting them to solve a problem and then solving the next problem and the next problem is just they love that. No matter what type of issues they may have, any kid can respond to that.
Really cool.
Oh, there's a
Questions
question.
back here. Sorry. Yep. Okay.
Tom Zinnon from the Biotechnology Center. Welcome to both of you. If I remember right from the data digest of the university, WARF gives UW-Madison about $60 to $65 million a year to support the research mission. As far as I know, it doesn't contribute anything to the university for the outreach mission of the university. Since you both have just said how important this outreach mission is it time to consider having WARF give money in support of the in support of the outreach mission of the university? If you were to give, say, 10% of 60 million, that would be 6 million. If it's that important, will there be money to follow?
Not to put you in the spot or anything.
No. The way the money is used is we do give it over to the chancellor and the vice chancellor for research and graduate programs. But I have to say that the town center, and Laura is on my management team, is part of WARF's leadership, and she runs this town center, which by definition and its very being is outreach. And the combination between Morgridge and WID, it is meant to combine the private institute of Morgridge with the university and having the outreach here. But I hear what you're saying about dollars going to other aspects of the university, and they're doing the outreach. And I just don't have the numbers offhand as to how the dollars are broken down and distributed by Marcia's office.
But what I'm hearing is you saying that it's so valuable and it's so valuable to the university. And of course, Morgridge isn't part of the university, and I think we're in the 70% of this building that's the private part. And so I will restate, if it's so important, will there be WARF money coming to support the science outreach mission of the University of Wisconsin-Madison?
Well, what happens in this town center, yes, 70% of this building is Morgridge related, but the activities that Laura is conducting throughout the town center is engaging the university students, graduate students, undergraduate students, and faculty, whether it's Science Saturdays or whether the activities that we're seeing this weekend. Whether WARF is going to dictate that a certain percentage of its grant to the university has to be used for outreach, my position, because I was at the Gates Foundation for a long time, making a lot of grants over many, many years, I was a strong believer in not dictating how a grantee would use their funds. Now, we do want to understand at WARF how the university is best using the grant. And we have a lot of conversation with the chancellor and the vice chancellors about the use of that money. But I am not I am not inclined to make a dictate. Now, WARF, I have expressed to my team, and I've expressed to WARF in general, that I am a firm believer of advocacy, outreach, and communications. And that is a little bit different from the perspective when it comes to WARF. That is, we're not doing research at WARF. The university is doing the research. So I am a firm believer and a supporter of what the town center is doing. I'm a firm believer that WARF will be transparent and communicate, and to the extent we can help the university tout its great research and those things that we want to commercialize. But I am not one who's going to turn and dictate upon the chancellor or the vice chancellor how they're going to use our grant dollars.
Well, thank you. The passion, the enthusiasm, it's like overwhelming. And what struck me is we're very fortunate here to have access to this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the bulk of the state probably doesn't. And I'm wondering if there's a way to engage kids. You mentioned iPads, tablets, etc. More done that's really creative, analogous to the TED Talks that came several years ago. And now everybody's accessing that kind of stuff. Is there a way to sort of take that video and put it into some kind of form that schools, kids, et cetera, could use? And I mean, not just that, but just sort of thinking about it in a way that reaches out to more.
Mm-hmm. So at the the United States Patent and Trademark Office, we have that. We have an entire section of our website that's dedicated to K through 12 education. And even within there, it's been divided into sections for like preteens and 5 through 7 and different. And within those sections, it's like, here's a curricula. So you teachers, you don't have to figure it out from scratch. Use this. We have activities, like the activity that we did at our table is on our website. And most of the things we have on there are low or no cost. So we've done all those things, but getting the message out is a challenge. So one of the things we do in addition to having it on our website is we have a Teachers Institute every summer. And the Teachers Institute brings the teachers in to get them excited about it and show them how to do it so they can go out and be nuclei or be the change agents in their own schools. And we have teachers come from all over the country. We don't have a lot of teachers come. I think it was like 60 this year because of funding issues. But still, that's another way to disseminate the information. By teaching the teachers. We also spend a lot of time, I personally had this recently 2 weeks ago, or the week I came here. I started here, I drove to Green Bay, from there I went to Marquette, and then to Houghton, and then to Sault Ste. Marie. So I'm not gonna reach everybody, but I tried. I don't know if you have any answer to that.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing in that point is a statement of passion around the Wisconsin idea, and I have come to learn that, and I subscribe to it deeply. And I would say Laura probably has a better answer to what we're doing as far as outreach, and I invite you to respond to that. But I am challenging the team as well to think about how, if we are a world-class university, and we are, then how do we communicate and outreach not just throughout Wisconsin, but throughout this nation? And I am a globalized person. I've spent my life coming in and out of India and China and South Africa and all those. And when I sat in a classroom this summer and I looked around at the kids who were there learning about entrepreneurship and science within one of the schools here, I turned to the person next to me, I said, this is the United Nations. There were kids there from all over the world. And the fact that they can be advocates and stewards of the great things happening here, they really should be, and it's incumbent upon us too, and it comes back to the question earlier, is what can WARF do itself to help foster thought leadership forums and idea spreading globally, nationally, statewide, and locally. And I think it's very, very important.
Well, and I'll just pick up and mention that even just the Science Festival, we've seen over the last 5 years an explosion of passion around the state, and we're not seeding that. That's homegrown. So this year, we passed a milestone where more events are taking place outside of Madison than in Madison as part of the festival. And there are 5 other, the big event that took place all day that really wiped out Crystal is this expo. And there are actually 5 expos in other locations around the state taking place during this time during the festival. So there's one up in Bayfield. Actually, we got a report from Bayfield last night. They had a family science night. 3/4 of Bayfield's population was there. Wow. So that's very cool. It's the second year they did it. They did it last year for the festival as well. I think Stout has an expo, Iola, Marquette, Rott County. Am I missing one? West, did I miss one? Is that all of them? Yeah, so I mean, that's just a new thing that this, just sort of turning on the light and saying, hey, we're going to promote this stuff. There's this critical moment in the fall. Do you want to be a part of it? And every year is just truly exponentially growing. And I'll just say also around the country, I mentioned this in the intro really quickly, science festivals are springing up all over the US. So when we got this one started, we were like in the first 10. I mean, there's more than 50 in the US right now, and growing every year. And there are actually some funding mechanisms such that new festivals are getting funding from some private foundations to mentor additional festivals. So we're getting like multiple festivals in Arkansas and the Florida Panhandle in Wyoming. And so it is something that we all need to be raising and triggering more, but it's taking place all over the place. So rural communities and communities that don't have access to major universities are nonetheless celebrating their science and tapping into the people that live and work there. So it is happening. Could there be more? There definitely could be more.
I just want to, my comment was not to suggest in any way that you folks aren't.
No, just, yeah.
And I mean, Lori, it's amazing what you've been able to do here. It's just,
well, I think it's actually a testament to what wants to happen in the state among the population. I think, we just sort of, we hung out a flag and said, hey, Wisconsin Science Festival. It's like, yeah, we'll do that. And so it's happening, and it's happening all around us. So, but certainly much more to tackle for sure. Were there a couple more questions real quickly? Right, yeah. I mean, we have time for like one more.
Yes, I'd like to bring in another dimension. Humanities and arts are part of complete education and critical to the culture of our society, institutions, business, and so on. So I'd like your comments. What if we had a different title today, which was Beyond Broader Impacts, How and Why Humanities and Arts Engagement are Part of the Cycle of Innovation?
Right.
Yeah, you strike a chord with me in the sense of I moved to Seattle in the early 90s, and I was there until a few months ago. And I watched that trend of science build and, quite frankly, push out the humanities and the arts. And there were great communities throughout Seattle that were vibrant and cultural and dynamic, and it created a sense of being and a sense of population and a sense of camaraderie and family. And then all of a sudden Adobe popped up and squeezed out an entire area of Fremont. And of course Microsoft did its thing, but it then spawned all sorts of things. The base of Lake Union was taken over by Amazon. And as much as we love the technologies and we use them every day, without those humanities and arts, which quite frankly much of the science builds off of, because it generates ideas and a connection with each other. And then you create the technology to foster that, and then all of a sudden you become disconnected, because now I don't have to touch you and talk to you and be around you, but I can do it over a telephone. So they have to coexist. And that's one reason I've moved to the city, to be honest, is I felt like I felt like Seattle outgrew what I wanted as a human being. And to move to Madison, my wife, who was living in Seattle from the late 80s and was there before I was, she said she came to Madison, she's like, this is what Seattle was when I moved there. And this is why I moved to Seattle. So let's be part of the community and build a vibrant community, but let's do our part to not screw it up like Silicon Valley did, and Seattle did, and I bet you Austin's going to do, and Boulder's going to do. Let's just not do that here. So humanities and the arts, you bet. It's a big deal. And we should all hold it as a big deal.
Absolutely. And so one of the parts of the exercises I mentioned is it's not just about the innovation, but explaining how the kids who are more artsy, how they play a part. And one of there's two stories I tell about that. And one is I'll make them really short, is the iPhone and Johnny Ive. He's totally all about design. He doesn't care about function, it's design, right? And why do the phones look so sleek and are they so beautiful? Because he is arts humanities, right? And then the other is, long version of the story. So I'm with the government, and whenever they get a rental car, it's usually one of these teeny tiny cars, the ones that used to go like this, kind of tiny little cars, and wheels the size of a quarter. And one day I flew into somewhere, it was like midnight, and I walked to the B12. What, B12? It was a red Mustang, Ford Mustang. And I'm like, wow, okay, it's kind of late. But the point of that is, people don't buy red Mustangs and pay that kind of money because of the engine. They want the engine. But if it looked like my car at home, which is a cube, they wouldn't buy it. It's the design of the car. And the automobiles companies spend a lot of money, time and money, on artists who design the way the fenders look, the way the whole thing looks. So when you kind of explain to kids like that, they go, "Oh, yeah. Well, I have a place in this innovation economy." And you have something. I was here talking about this exact same thing with the woman over there, the journalist. Last time said, "Do you know that there is a arts and innovation thing that opened last night here?" Right. No. So we're getting that. We understand it, and we're trying to populate it more.
Well, and that's actually a perfect way for us to bring this part of the conversation to a close. So we're going to adjourn and go to that exhibit across the street.
That was not planned.
But that's perfect. And so please do join us across the street at Gallery 1308. And please help me in thanking Eric and Crystal for this great conversation.